What's up, guys?
Welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast, Whiskey and Water.
And water. Was I late? I was a little late on that.
Whiskey
last
and
time
water.
you were like, dude, you're always fucking late. You need to say it faster.
Because you guys tell me that I'm not right, though. I always say saying whiskey and water, and she says it like 10 minutes later.
It's only the remote. It's only because we're doing a remote. There's a delay. It's not my fault, okay?
I feel you on that.
So, welcome back, brothers. This week we have on Gina Gomez, who is our guest. She is a life coach for women, and she helps a lot with relationships. But what's cool about her is that she uses the Enneagram Test, which is a personality test that has been around for ages, but she kind of uses that in her coaching and with her clients to help them understand who they are, why they are the way they are, and we really just get in there in the nitty gritty
of why you're a little bitch and how to fix it. I'm kidding, brothers. We love you.
Bitch. But yeah, so it's a good one. It's fun. It's fun to know more about us. Jess and I both took the test, which was really interesting.
And we both talked about it and how they complemented each other or it did not complement each other.
Yes, we get all into it. We talk about why it's important, how it might be ugly for some of us, but you guys will enjoy this. I know it for sure. But before we get into it, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, brother. I can't remember if I had...
I like the green and blonde situation going on.
I don't know if I had this hair last week, but I
don't think you did, because we were talking about how we tried to dye your hair pink, and then we had tried to bleach it, and then it was still pink.
Yeah, so I had to use a decolorizer, which, what the fuck? You'd think it would be bleach. I'm actually learning so much about hair and shit, but yeah, so now my shit is it's like a lime greenish yellow blonde. But I fuck with it though. It's kind of dope.
Yeah. Fuck it.
I'm here for
I like it. You don't. The color of your hair. You don't identify. It's just what it is.
It's just there.
It's just there. Yeah.
How about you, brother?
We're still quarantining. Same. But actually same, but not same, because this bitch got pantry doors.
She got pantry doors. We're leveling up.
That's when
you know
I'm old. That's when you know I'm old, when I'm excited for pantry doors. But honestly, it makes such a difference. It was such an eyesore in my kitchen, and now it's covered. It looks amazing. All we have to do is paint. We got all these doors. They're all this ugly beige color, but now we have to paint, and it's good. We got some floating shelves up. We put a new, you'll love this, the mirror, the pour mirror in my bathroom.
Did you get a new one?
New
Yay!
one.
I'm so glad. I thought you guys weren't going to do that. I thought you guys weren't going to fix that.
It was bothering me, and we were at Home Depot, and I saw. So it's not a medicine cabinet, but it's just a mirror, but it's bigger, and it totally expanded the bathroom. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna put before and afters on my story so y'all can see. But yeah, so just home improvement going on here per usual.
I love those mirrors in bathrooms that are a little bit unconventional, they're ovals and they have frames or they're circles. I love the unconventional vibe that's going on in modern bathrooms. Anyway,
enough of our interior design podcast.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Guys, we just did the same thing. Okay, wait, before I forget, I want to shout out the CBD company that I've been working with, Wellness Organics, because this is the shit. I literally just took it before we started the episode. I talked about it on my Instagram stories. I did a post about it, and it's the first CBD company that I really actually vibe with. And during this pandemic, I have experienced my fair share of anxiety. It's getting better. Yay, me. But
love that for you.
Yeah, knowing I have this is really great and very comforting. It is clean. It is medical grade, which is real deal. Mm-hmm. So, and I love that it's a family-run business. It's a small little family, and they're just doing their thing. They have a great story, and the products work. And they also have great CBD tea that I sip on at night. So yeah,
support small business.
Yeah, exactly. Check them out. Use my code Olivia10 for a discount, and we will leave the link in the description. So yeah, Check them out, guys. Okay, anyways, back to the catch up.
So we did a little segment like 2 weeks ago of our Amazon purchases. And since it's been a couple weeks, you know, I may or may not have ordered
Amazon purchases.
And we just want to tell you guys about them because a lot of them are arriving today and I'm very excited.
And this is not a sponsored post or segment.
Amazon sponsor us.
Yeah, we wish.
Yeah,
my God, that would be the day. Okay, you can just list yours off because I just have a funny story about my Amazon. So you go ahead, list them.
Okay, I'm just going to tell you guys everything I got.
Okay.
So
everything. We're going to be here a while.
TikTok has been influencing my purchases. It's so bad. I
know it's so bad, but it's also so good.
Right? I love the bitches that are like, I just got this on Amazon. And I'm like, oh my God, I screenshot.
Top 5 Amazon must-haves.
Yeah. Oh my God. I live for that shit.
I'm like, it's like 3 a.m. my money, bitch. Take my money.
It's 3 a.m. and I'm like scrolling through her entire account, like making notes. Anyway, so this thing, I've seen this mask before and it's gone like, I've seen it before. This isn't like a hot take, but it's that like Indian clay mask.
Yes, I have seen that. Yes.
So,
they're like, this is magic. It works for everything.
But, you know, I have heard that like in the past, it's not just like a viral thing from TikTok. Like, you know, I've seen it. So I decided to get that because my skin's been breaking out for like no fucking reason. Honestly, I don't appreciate it. Gotta be real with you guys.
It's so rude.
It's
honestly just really inconsiderate. Like
what have I done to
all
you?
Things considered, really? You're gonna do me like that? I love you. I clean you.
Such good care of you.
I put serums on you.
The expensive shit too. Fucking $100 serum on this fucking skin of mine.
The disrespect.
The disrespect.
Okay.
Anyways. So I'll let you guys know how that mask is.
Yeah.
I got some new hand dish towels like for the kitchen because like I just had like those mismatching towels and
it's crusty, rusty, dusty.
I'm way too rich for that. Moving on. I got face mask brushes because I used to stay putting shit on with my fingers and like
you right. Oh, so it's the silicone one that kind of looks like a baking. Oh, I peeped that. I kind of wanted to get that too.
Dude, I got a pack of 3. I'll give you one.
What's up,
Sharing
brother?
is caring, brother.
Send it over.
Next, I got these really cute like stackable jewelry organizers because my jewelry collection has just been growing and growing, and I have one of those little rinky-dink like hang-ons, and like I just can't see everything; it gets tangled, and I like to be able to see everything. I like to see everything so I can choose what I want to wear. Next,
we got choices.
We got choices. I got reusable cotton rounds because like that's how I take off like my makeup and cleanse and
love that. Let me know how that is for you because I might make that too.
We're on our sustainable shit.
We eco-friendly.
We love the earth. Next, I got I got this because of you. Reusable paper towels.
I'm an influencer.
And that's not influencing.
We influencing each other.
Oh, I hate us. So I got reusable paper towels because I go through so many of those fucking things and
it's so bad.
But I had to get
but I can't throw these away. And I'm like, yes, we can wash. That's why we wash them. It's like, but there's things and then now it's dirty. And I'm like, okay, you'll get used to it.
Boo fucking who? We're saving the planet, Tyler. Next and least.
But it's honest work.
And then I got these from the recommendation of Amanda Carolla. Shout out Amanda. We love her. But I actually think that she found these from like Khloe Kardashian or some shit. They're like muslin face cloths. They're like made for babies. So like they're really they're super soft. Like I saw them in her bathroom one time.
Is it makeup remover?
No. It's just like
cloth.
It's just like a washcloth for your face. But like I stay using like my hand towels and like that's probably so abrasive on my skin and I'm definitely not like gentle by any means. So yeah, I bought those too. They're like $15 for a pack of 10. So I'm like, fuck it.
Let me know. I might cop too.
Yeah.
All right. So I started my Amazon influencer account, whatever. I don't really know how it works. They have like two separate things. They have Amazon affiliate and then Amazon influencer. I don't know the difference. It's so confusing, whatever. So I decided I would share some stuff on my stories with swipe up links. I was like, let me make my cut. Let me get my money back. And
secure that bag, sis.
And I'm looking at it and it's like, it tells me the number of things that sold and how many clicks and everything. And I'm like, hell yeah, like I'm about to get all my money back for shit, right? And then I go to like the items, it says items ordered, and it's just like mad confusing because I see this toothpaste that I've never seen this toothpaste in my life. So I'm like, I didn't even share that. So like why I just didn't understand.
Maybe someone's like clicking through your account and went to that.
But I didn't even buy that. So that's confusing. That I actually still don't understand. And the rest is like all stuff that I didn't. I mean, two of the items were things that I shared on my story. Everything else I did not share on my story, but they were recent purchases of mine. So I'm like, okay, maybe people are swiping up and then they're looking at my recent purchases and then purchasing things that I purchased. But like it was just like really random weird shit, like shipping tape. Like I bought shipping tape. I'm like, why is someone buying shipping tape off of my like link? Like what? It wasn't adding up.
Yeah.
So for like 2 days, I'm like, this isn't adding up. And yesterday on the phone, I had my sister on the phone and like we just happened to be talking about it and we're going through it. And I'm like, I just really don't understand. Like these are all such random things. And I shared so many other things that I saw people swiped up on and like how come those haven't been bought? But I see that a lot is bought. So I'm just like hella confused, right? And then she's like, are you sure you're not just buying things through your own link? And I was like, I think that's what it is. Here I am, hyping myself up, thinking I'm a motherfucking influencer, selling shit. Nope, joke's on me. I'm buying my own shit, bitch. Giving myself commission.
Wait, how? How are you buying? I'm so confused. How are you buying through your own link?
Don't know, but it is the only logical thing that makes sense. Like maybe I'm just signed into my account and like I don't know, but that's the only thing that makes sense. Why is someone buying shipping tape off of my referral link?
But the shipping tape is something that you've bought?
Yes. It's all stuff. It's all my recent purchases. Dude, I was dying when I realized this.
Oh my God.
Like my sister and I were just cracking up because I'm like hyping myself up. I'm like, look at all this shit I sold. I'm like an influencer. It's like all of my purchases that I made. Fucking idiot.
Love that for you.
Yeah. So that's my experience. If you understand Amazon affiliate program, please let me know because I am hella confused.
Seriously. My current.
I wish I could help you.
My current. I just snorted. Sorry.
I mean, the mic didn't hear it. You did not have to announce it, but I mean, let the brothers know.
The snort.
Live your truth.
I thought I was like I thought that I was straight into the mic.
I thought you said farted. I was like, girl, TMI. You sold yourself out. Like, no one heard that.
Oh, hell no. I stay farting in the episodes and no one knows. Okay, no, I'm kidding. That's a fucking joke.
You stinky ass bitch. Okay, let's just get right into this conversation.
Wait. No, what? I was going to say my last thing.
Oh my God, what?
So I'm working on like I told you, I'm working on my WordPress website, but I'm like building it from scratch. So that's all I'm saying. If anyone knows anything about Amazon influencer accounts and or WordPress, we're taking all the tips.
Hit us up. Yeah. Any other reminders, guys, if you're enjoying so far, if we've made you laugh at all, post on your stories and tag us because you love to see it. Post on your stories and tag us. We love to see it. We love the support. We're nearing the end of our 3rd season, so we just coming back better than ever.
Love that for us.
And that's on improvement,
growth,
and we're
gonna have we have a really fun, actually, season closer lined up for you guys. So that'll be a fun little treat.
Yeah, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. That's a few episodes down. You guys are going to love, love, love this episode. It's so good. We're going to include the link to take the test. It takes like 10 minutes, maybe less. Go ahead and fill it out and see what type you are. And then have your spouse or best friend fill it out, see what type they are. It's fun. It's a fun little activity. And while we're all bored in quarantine,
flourish.
We know y'all got time. So, all right, we'll just get right into it.
Enjoy.
All right, guys, we are here with Gina. Thank you so much for joining us at the remote table.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're excited to chat and get the scoop on, before I butcher the pronunciation of it, how do you say it?
It's called the Enneagram.
Enneagram. Okay, that's not that hard. I could have said that. So yeah, we're excited to dive into this with you. This is a topic that Jess and I have been curious about in the past, and we did take the test ourselves, so we'll chat about our results. And before we dive into it, I guess kind of just introduce yourself to our audience and kind of what you do.
Sure. So I'm a women's life coach, and the Enneagram is sort of the cornerstone of my coaching because it helps women rediscover who they are, or maybe find out some of the challenges that they've had, and then kind of connects them to their intuition and just a better understanding of themselves, in particular through relationships like breakups and just overall challenges they're having in their relationships.
Cool. And I don't recall how I found you. I think it was through like hashtags, and I just got in like a rabbit hole on Instagram and I came across your page, and you have a rather large following. So that's amazing. Congrats on that. And I see like all your graphics, how you organize it, and I see a lot of it is relationship based. So I am excited to dive into that some more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how the Enneagram test works, or kind of just like, the backing behind it for someone who maybe hasn't taken it yet?
Sure. So the Enneagram is a personality typing test. So there's 9 types. And when you take the test, the caveat is always that you take it to help you kind of narrow it down between 2 or 3 types. And then you can, from there, dive in to which one of those most resonates with you. So some people will resonate with their number right away, and then others, it's totally normal to need just a little bit more information. And it's like any other self-discovery journey where it's not like instantaneous.
Right.
But yeah, there's free test. I always suggest the free test just because you don't really need to take a paid test. And again, like there's tons of resources out there to dive into the numbers that you most are likely to have.
Mm-hmm. So
Gotcha.
What about, I'm curious to know, just like with you and your journey and, getting into this career choice, what was it about this specific test that kind of like attracted you to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it was around 10 years ago. I was seeing a therapist in Italy, and he was the one who introduced me to it because we didn't have enough time to kind of like get to some of the issues that I was having. And when he first showed it to me, I was like kind of taken aback at first because I thought it was a cult or like some weird thing. The symbol is very like esoteric.
Yeah, so, I can see that.
Yeah. And, but anyway, I went back to my apartment and just Googled the shit out of it. And all of a sudden, when I read my type, I didn't even take a test. When I read my type, I was like such in a stressful, unhealthy state that I was like, oh yeah, that's me. Like, and I think whenever we look at personality types, you're either kind of ready to receive it or you're not. So I just started from there. Like my whole journey with it was just studying it, taking online workshops and in-person workshops, wanting to get to know not just myself, but then it like goes into your relationships, right? Like your family, your friends, your partner, and things like that. So, the reason I like this one so much more than any other is that it doesn't necessarily just put you in a box. Like even with astrology, which I love, it's not really getting to the root of why you do the things that you do. So the Enneagram sort of gives you this roadmap from your past into your present, and then like now you have alternative options to make healthier choices.
Cool. That's really interesting. You said something about not being able, like, ready to receive it. Could you dive into that a little bit? Because I'm curious to know what you mean by that.
Yeah. So sometimes when we read the aspects of ourselves, we can either feel like kind of cringy, or it's like, no, that's not who I am, because we get defensive. Like it's totally normal. When I read about a type 2, which is what my type is, that we were emotionally manipulative, I was like, I'm sorry, what?
You're like, excuse me?
Yeah, like it's
Who
really
are
difficult
you to tell me?
It's really difficult sometimes to read those challenges, right, that we might have. And so I always tell my clients and like people kind of coming into the Enneagram, all of those challenges that we bring, like, you know, maybe some of us are more aggressive, or we care too much what people think, things like that. They're not necessarily negatives. They're just aspects of ourselves that we've had to sort of develop. Their coping mechanisms that we've had to adapt to because of our environment and the people in our environment. So it kind of softens the blow a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I feel like when you take these tests, like it's definitely good to be open-minded, because even like, you know, both of us took the test, you know, prior to getting on the call. And when I was reading it over, you know, you have to be very, very honest with with yourself. It takes a lot of like self, I guess, mirroring, I guess, you know, you really have to take an honest look at yourself and, you know, your habits. And so I feel like it's a really good way to kind of like ease into doing like self-work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think like the results can either, like you said, challenge you, but some of them, it validates a lot of feelings and, you know, emotions and experiences that someone may have with themselves, and maybe they don't really realize why they are the way they are, and then they read it, and for some reason, like seeing it, I guess, understanding that it's normal and it's okay, something about it is validating.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And most of us are wanting to be validated.
Amen.
That's why when we read these quotes on Instagram, or when we kind of, like even the Enneagram information, a lot of people will say funny things like get out of my brain, or like, did you pick up my diary, or, you know, stop calling me out, but it's just because they're like being able to recognize that they're being seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, being seen, and they're not alone, you know, like we're all experiencing these same challenges, these difficulties. It's not like, you know, I think we all think for some reason that we're the only ones feeling this way, and like why, and we like feel isolated. But when you see that, it's like, no, this is normal. It's comforting in a way.
Oh yeah.
It's funny because even as I was taking the test, I'm like reading these questions, and they were like so specific, but I'm like, this is a personality test. Like they're asking these questions because this is a normal thing to feel, you know? And I was like, holy shit. Like, you know, other people feel like this. Other people like have these realizations. And yeah, I feel like all the times we can kind of feel alienated from others, and we kind of don't realize that, you know, we're all human and having this shared experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Especially now more than ever. I also like what you said about like a lot of the times, like if it's challenging if your results are challenging to you, like challenging to accept, kind of not taking it personally, and just understanding that you're like a product of your environment. You are the way you are because of, you know, there's reasons. So I think that was a really interesting point you made of like, you know, seeing our flaws kind of just like what it is, like taking it as it is, and not taking it personally, and just understanding that like those traits in your personality, you know, it's a product, we're a product of our environment in a way.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And also it always helps too if you have someone like a best friend or someone you feel safe with to sort of laugh at yourself sometimes. Like I think a healthy dose of self-deprecation is kind of, good for us. Because it kind of lightens that burden
blow.
of like, the blow, exactly.
And when someone, takes this test and let's say that they, something about it like really sticks out to them and they're not happy about it or they're not comfortable with it, what is something that, you would say to them, and like kind of how would you encourage them to maybe like change that?
Or accept.
Yeah, and or accept it.
Yeah. So normally, when someone's going into that, okay, I'm getting ready to read my results and what it is, they're really excited. There's usually this like, oh, I want it to validate me, right? I want it to tell me, usually my strengths. And what's so interesting is that most people, when you ask them like, what are your strengths? What are the gifts that you bring? It's kind of difficult for them. But if you ask them like, what are some challenges and weaknesses that you have, they just come like pouring out. So I would say definitely when you're reading these, just being able to hold that compassion for yourself before you put judgment on yourself. It's going to be natural that you might feel a bit of that cringe or the defensiveness, but making sure that you're also like being kind to yourself while you're reading it.
Definitely. And I think that, I think a lot of it has to probably do with mindset as well. Like something that you could say is, quote unquote, a flaw could be something that someone loves about you, or, can be with a shift of a mindset or perspective can be turned into one of your greatest strengths.
Yeah, no, that's really well said. Perfect. And you could say the same thing about your strengths, right? There's like the double-edged sword of being so loving, for example, where you might be absorbing too much of people's emotional pain. So yeah, that was great for sure.
Love that you said that. And I feel like, taking these tests and learning so much about yourself, like not only allows you to, do self work, but it also allows you to reflect on like your relationships and your friendships and, how we can improve in those. So, I know that your, specialization is kind of like in relationships and breakups. And how would you say that this could, benefit, people learning their compatibility with others?
Yeah, I think it really starts with just the simple fact that the most important relationship we have is with ourselves, because we're with ourselves 24/7.
Facts.
And it will translate in your relationship, like the healthier and more accepting, more loving, more forgiving we are with ourselves, it's going to show up in our relationship. So
Totally.
When it comes to compatibility, a lot of people will ask like, oh, well, which types go better with which types, things like that. But if we all kind of like think about it, when we're with someone and we're aware of our flaws and our challenges, and they are also aware of their flaws and challenges, and like these two people kind of come together wanting to take care and take responsibility for themselves, but also support the other person in doing the same thing. And that's really when you have like a good match, doesn't matter what type it is.
Cool. And I think that when you take these, and I think that when you take these tests too, it allows you to look at yourself objectively, rather than like with ego. So, when you look at someone else's flaws objectively and you realize that it's like not personal, like that, it just is the way that they are. And, of course we can always improve. But I feel like, in a relationship, it's kind of like learning each other's love languages as well. It's like, they don't mean to not express in my love language. Like this is just the way that they are. And so I feel like, learning more about yourself and therefore, your partners can definitely help, the harmony of relationships.
Yeah, I have a few questions that I was curious about while taking the test. There's a lot of questions that, and I know they kind of give you like a disclaimer before you start the test, like the point or the best way to get your results is to answer this with how you are now, not how you aspire to be, right?
Yeah.
So then when you take personal development into consideration, like I couldn't tell some of the questions, I couldn't tell if my answers were because of my spiritual work or if it was because of my personality.
Yeah.
So how would you suggest going about that? Like how does that change the results, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think a lot of people, most people have that question. And I always say, when you're reading the questions, we have to think of ourselves also as we were before we had to put on all these hats, right? So maybe like adolescent age, like if you're struggling with a question and you're like, well, when I'm at work, I'm this, but when I'm with my partner, I'm like this. So it's kind of hard
Right.
because we're wearing different hats. So thinking about yourself as well in that 11, 12 age where you just were who you were, and those challenges, if you think about it, that you had when you were that age, you're still probably having them to some degree.
That's so interesting. You said that. That's actually really good advice to know when taking the test. Because for me, like to try to think about my answers, I would have to compare the different relationships in my life and how I act in those relationships because it's like
Yeah.
you like need some sort of substance to,
Yeah.
think about the questions that it's asking. So I love that because it's true when we're like 11, 12, like that is our prime true just,
Awkward.
Unfiltered.
unfiltered, like unbiased, uninfluenced true selves. So that's actually really good advice. Do you think people change types as they grow older?
So the rule in the Enneagram is that you are your core type for life.
Okay.
There's different philosophies that have come up. I wouldn't say quite recently, but that you're actually born with your type. It's going to depend on who you ask.
Yeah.
I think that I like to keep my mind open because as we've seen, like when we like are so certain about something and so factual, it can kind of be damaging. So
Yeah.
just keeping an open mind. But the general rule is that you're just one type for life.
Yeah, because that brings up the whole nature versus nurture discussion, which is a whole other monster.
Yeah.
How do you feel like, what do you, just out of, pure curiosity, what do you feel about like astrology and like kind of how it like compares? Like, do you find yourself looking at your horoscope or anything like that?
Yeah, I love astrology, and I have found it so helpful in the last couple of years. I subscribe to a daily horoscope, and I forget her name, but her site is called Bondi Guru, and she is an intuitive but also an astrologer, and so she kind of blends the two together. And so when you get your horoscope, it talks about like how she's intuitively assessing the energy of your type instead of like, oh, this planet is coming into this, and you're kind of like, wait, what, So yeah, I love astrology, and we actually did a podcast episode about the Enneagram and what types are likely to be associated to their astro sign, their sun sign.
That's really interesting. That's cool.
Yeah. And I love that you are kind of into the astrology thing, because I feel like a lot of people, like when they find their one thing, they kind of like stick to it and they cling to it. But it's really all about like following whatever path works for you. And if you find that the Enneagram is helpful to you and can help work as a guide through through our lives and through our journeys, like everyone has to do what works for them.
Yeah, and taking it all into consideration, it's not one size fits all. It's just taking a little bits and pieces here and there and trying to just get a better understanding of who we are at our core.
Right. Yeah.
Go ahead. You want to go, Jess?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were probably going to go in the same direction as far as like relationships in quarantine.
Well, before we dove totally into that, I saw you had a post. It was like 5 ways the Enneagram test can improve your life, and I would be curious just to give a few of those. It doesn't have to be 5. Just a few reasons why why it's important and why people should consider taking it.
Sure. So those 5 examples came straight out of my book that I wrote called The Enneagram and You. And I wanted to kind of give people a little bit of framework when coming into the Enneagram. So the first one, of course, is like self-awareness, right? We have to start there if we're doing any kind of self-development or inner work, or even looking at systems like astrology and things like that. We have to first be aware of who we are. And the Enneagram acts as sort of a roadmap for that. And then also, once we have established our characteristics and our behavioral patterns, we need to bring mindfulness to them if we want to change them. Some people are like, I'm good the way I am. But if there's any kind of behavioral change that you want to make, we have to start bringing the mindfulness to our like daily practice. And I feel like then that sort of leaps us into self-compassion, where we realize now, okay, like these are the cycles I kind of keep repeating. These are the patterns, and holding space for ourselves, making sure that we're approaching all of this with like a deep well of compassion, basically. And yeah, to be honest, I completely forgot the other 2. But
no, it's okay. It's okay. That's why I was like, don't feel obligated to list all 5. Like that's a lot on the spot. But yeah, no, that's perfect. Just some really important reasons why it's something great to consider doing. And I think, anything that offers us insight into who we are and why we are the way we are is helpful no matter what.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let's go into relationships.
Cool. So when someone approaches you and like, I'm sure because of quarantine, a lot of relationships have been,
On the rocks.
on the rocks. And, like, and, even just personally, like, when you're inside and alone all day, like you kind of got to face some things about yourself that that aren't so pretty. We're not going out and being distracted by, socializing and whatever it may be. Like, things are coming up and, they're not that pretty. I mean, I'm sure in relationships, tensions are heightened. So when someone comes to you and they're like, hey, I'm having relationship problems, how do you approach that? And how does the Enneagram just help them or maybe provide like clarity? Like what's kind of your route there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I try to make sure that whenever I like post a series for each of the 9 types, or whenever I offer a service, that it's in a container where you're going to be able to take like practical action, because sometimes we can get it's like a slippery slope with like spiritual bypassing and just like, well, just accept each other and that's it. So when it comes to that, it's so interesting because every combination is going to have their own set of challenges, right? So there isn't really just a like one size fits all. And in these last classes that I've been teaching, we are going into depth into like what it looks like when you're in survival mode, like when you're in stress mode inside of your relationship, and like what each type can do for themselves to kind of turn the ship around, let's say. And they have been coming into these classes with their partners, so their partners can kind of get also better understanding of what's going on. So I would say that that's really the place to start, is like you and your partner kind of both have to be on that same, okay, let's get a better understanding of us, like not just of ourselves, but like how we interact inside of our relationship.
Yeah, and both parties have to be willing, because if one side isn't willing, it's like you can't really work with that. It takes 2 to tango.
For sure.
For
That was going to be
sure.
my next question is that how do you kind of like if someone comes to you and they're like, he's not going to want to take a fucking personality test? Because I know that I've definitely dated people in the past who were like,
I know who I am.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I guess that, that raises a whole other bunch of questions like, do you even want to be with that person?
Right.
But that's interesting. Have you found that there's been a rise of kind of like relationship issues during this time?
What I have seen is that whatever issues were there to begin with are like magnified because
are flourishing.
The problems are flourishing. Because when we're stressed, it's like we're in autopilot. We're not like settled. We're not grounded, and so we're just putting out fires. And to kind of go back a little bit to what you just said, the classes that I've been teaching, some of the people, when they're filling out the intake, it's like, my partner's making me do this, or like, I'm only doing this because, but even just giving them credit for showing up, like that should be acknowledged.
Totally.
Because it's not easy to face ourselves, and some people have a harder time doing that. So
yeah. So even with, Tyler and I've been definitely seeing my own pattern of issues of me just less now, but definitely more towards when like shit was starting to hit the fan with COVID. I was definitely on edge, and it was interesting because things that he was doing where normally I would kind of laugh at and brush off, I was like so on edge about a global pandemic that I was just like, it was those little things were just pissing me off, just totally setting me off. And I was just like blowing up. And it really took like me sitting down and reflecting and being like, what, why? And I had to reflect and realize it was me. And then, I approached him and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm on edge. Like, this is, you're just as annoying as ever. It's me who's on edge. And now it's an issue for me. So yeah, that's been interesting. And I think also a lot of, again, not so much now, things are thank God, things are kind of settling down, but definitely in the beginning, like we were disagreeing on the severity of the situation. Like I was taking a lot more seriously, and he was kind of being very like aloof about it and not disinfecting and like not really washing his hands. So have you seen any of that type of conflict in relationships, of people just not being on the same page about the pandemic?
Yeah, no, totally. I think it's totally normal for two people to have like very opposing approaches. And also going back to like how we process stress and how we process our fears will show up differently. Like maybe someone's flippant approach to what's happening is just from a feeling of like, if I'm not afraid, if I act like I'm not afraid, I feel safer. Yeah, or it's not real, or it's not going to happen to me. Those kinds of things. We're all doing these things to feel better.
Yeah,
you Liv just feels heard right now.
Wow, I feel so heard. Wow, you just nailed it on the head. That's funny. Yeah, and I think no matter what, too, like you said, Jess, whether you're alone and things are coming up, or when you're with a partner, and my fiance is going to work every day, so we're not dealing with the issue that a lot of couples are having of spending 24/7 together right now. Yeah. So I think that's a whole other issue on its own, just because I think a healthy amount of time apart is necessary for a relationship, in my opinion. But I know for a lot of couples, they feel stuck together and they can't leave the house, and they can't, separate really to have their own individual alone time. So how would you, if couples are still quarantining together, what would be your advice for them to kind of navigate that?
So I think just having, you're going to have to both put your big girl panties on and realize that like stress is, it's going to pass, like knowing and reminding yourself it's not always going to be like this. Because some of us, when we're in stress, myself, I'm talking for myself, like when there's a stressful situation, it almost feels like this is permanent now. Like, oh my goodness, like what's going to happen? And I'm like in the future thinking how I'm going to live 5 years from now. So I think it's really important for the couple to kind of realize that we're on the same team. Like we're in this together, we're on the same team, and we both have needs that need to be met, even more so now that this is happening. And then I would suggest listening to Esther Perel. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her, but she has a great article in the New York Times, I believe. I could be wrong. It might be the New Yorker, but helping to give people, couples in particular, like ways to relieve some of the stress that's happening. And from what I've gathered from the article was that creating like routines and separating like different parts of the house where you guys can still find some sort of sanctuary within your space and with each other.
Cool.
I feel like even, if you have the opportunity, like taking a walk, like getting like even like my daily walks with my dog, even those like 20 to 30 minutes that I had without my boyfriend were nice, like he got a chance to just be alone, I got a chance to be alone, and just creating those little bits of distance. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to like one person works in the living room all day, the other works in the bedroom, but it can be little snippets of time as well.
Yeah, I think that's really good practical advice. And it may sound silly, like, oh, I'm not going to take a 5-minute walk alone, but I think it really does make a difference.
Yeah.
Just like for your sanity, even just going, like I have a backyard, I just step outside and like I create the space for myself to have that time. And you have to be intentional about it, which is something we preach on every episode, is just being intentional about your time and your well-being, really. What I'm curious to know, when you work with these couples, is there any sort of like homework that you give them to work on at home, or any like actionable takeaways that you ask from them?
Yeah, so right now the service that I'm offering is those individual classes. So each one comes with like a guide, and inside of there's you can call it homework. They're just self-reflective prompts to work on like deeper self-discovery, but also kind of challenging them when it comes to those challenges that they're bringing to the relationship. And they, of course, can do this with their partner. Like there's prompts in there that will say like, have you asked your partner lately, like what they need from you in the relationship right now, or just things like that, kind of provide more support.
Love that. And I feel like a lot of the time, and just from like things that I've been listening to, like I listen to podcasts and they're like, if you're having issues with your partner, like, sit down and ask them, like hold their hand and ask them for what you need. And I feel like that's not super practical, because it's kind of like weird to like sit someone down and be like, hey, I need you to, tell me that you love me at least 5 times a day, which, don't get me wrong, is something that I would love to do. But it's so funny because it's like, oh my God, yeah, that's what I should do. And then like, you ever just like look at your partner and be like, how am I supposed to like ask for that? So I love that like, these people are going into these classes like together, and like this is, homework, quote unquote, that they need to do together. It kind of allows you to be vulnerable without being kind of seen as like weak, or like makes it less uncomfortable. So I love that.
Yeah. And it's going to be those, like that kind of, like if I were to say to a 4, for example, to have that practice, they would love that. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes, I'm definitely going to do that with my partner. Whereas versus like an 8 or a 3, they're going to be like, what? No, I'm good.
It's so funny that you say that, because I literally took the test and I was an 8. So it's like, That sounds like a nightmare to me. Like, I'm not gonna, like, I don't know. I find it very hard to be, vulnerable in my intimate relationships. Like, if I'm talking to Olivia, it's pretty easy for me to be like, hey, like, I need you to, do this in our friendship, or, and I feel like vice versa, we're very, like, open with that. But like in an intimate relationship, I've just found that, like, I get a little bit more anxious, and, I think it's because we can get into like what mine and Olivia's Enneagram test reveal, but
I can't wait.
yeah, it's, I definitely I struggle with that, like, vulnerability a lot more, which is so interesting because I'm learning more about that through this test.
I also think that has to do with knowing that I'm not going anywhere. Like, I can't break up with you.
Oh, 100%.
And like, in a relationship, it's like there's always this ultimatum, like, you have a choice to stay or to go. And like when you're best friends, it's like, unless something really bad happens, like we're not going to break up. Like, so
yeah.
you can be, knowing that safety shield is there, you can be a lot more kind of just like vulnerable in a way.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. Between, you and I, we had a conversation the other day, and it was like, and, you brought up something similar. Like, I was having anxiety in my relationship, and we kind of traced it back to a past relationship of mine where I was broken up with once a week. So it's like, I did realize that, I had this underlying fear of being left. And, honestly, let's get into our Enneagrams, because I think it's so interesting how compatible me and Olivia are, and how she's like so able to kind of like, compliment me and balance out, and, being able to like track back like my traumas, and allow me to heal from that. And I feel like that's really, really important in a best friend and a partner.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So do you have your Enneagram pulled up, Liv?
I do. So we took the test. Okay. So I didn't know what to expect when I took this. I didn't know how long it would take, but I get into it and I'm like, oh, okay, 14 pages. Let me get comfortable. And then I'm on page 10 and the freaking site like reloads and I'm like, no.
Oh my gosh, that's the worst. I'm sorry.
She had to retake the entire thing.
And then the questions are like, they don't stay in the same order. So I was like, it's okay. I can try. Like, I'll remember what I put. And then it was all out of order. So I had to read all of them again. It's funny. It made my test that much more accurate because I actually did change some of my answers.
True.
When I thought about it a second time, I was like, okay, maybe.
And, I think it's funny, even as you said earlier, like there's a caveat that it's like, it's not going to tell you exactly who you are. It's kind of what you identify most with, because like when I took the test, it was like, you are most likely a type this. And then it's like taking wings into account. It gave me like two different, kind of like sub types. And then I was like,
I don't understand the wings, but we'll get into that.
Yeah. So Liv, what was your...
Okay, so it said you are most likely a type 2, and I scored like a 10.7. I'm also not sure what the numbers mean, but so my top 3 were type 2, type 1, type 3, which is the type 2 is the helper, so that was my number 1. The type 2 is the reformer, which is type 2. Which is my second one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then my third one was type 3, the achiever. So those were my top 3.
Yeah, so did you read a little bit into the type 2?
Yes, I did. I feel like I resonate more with the type 1. Okay. Type 1 is just for those listening, type 1 is perfectionist, responsible, fixated on improvement. And that was my second type. Oh God, this is getting confusing because I was like naming what order they came in. My number 1 type was type 2, the helper. Helpers who need to be needed. So definitely a strong part of my personality, but I'm not sure if I would say it was 1, but definitely a mix.
Yeah. So the most important thing to always keep in mind is that we can all have the same characteristic or attribute, right? Like we all want to be loved. Like everyone, every human being, there's an aspect of themselves that wants to be loved, but there's always a different motivating factor usually for wanting that love. And so when you get your results, so like I see here, you got the type 2 and the type 1 were sort of the highest, which means that it rated you as probably a type 2 with a 1 wing. So wings are just the two numbers that are adjacent to your core type. So for example, if you're a 2, you'd have a 1 wing and you would have a 3 wing.
Oh, okay. See, I would have been better if I knew that vocabulary. So I wasn't like my 1, my 2, my 3, my 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, and those wings just add a little bit of influence, kind of like a flavoring to your personality. It's said that usually there's like a dominant wing that is present, and however, you can have sort of both of those aspects showing up. So for example, if you were a type 2, your motivation, your core desire would be to be loved and needed and accepted, right? And the 1 would kind of come in and bring in the characteristics of wanting to be also like a good person, very moral, doing things the right way. That's where the perfectionist kind of comes in, and kind of making sure and being very attuned to like what needs to be fixed. So the 3 wing would come in and kind of flavor with a little bit of like goal oriented, and it like likes to have the recognition for a job well done and things like that.
Cool. I mean, I feel like that's pretty spot on. Go ahead.
Before, when we took the test, she was like, "What do you think I am?" And I told her like which ones I thought that she was. And it's funny because you scored like 10.7 for your first one, which is type 2, and I also scored 10.7 for type 2. Although it was my secondary.
It was your wing.
It was my wing. But my first one was a type 8, which is the challenger, which I feel like, I don't know if like that is.
If you know whiskey and water, this is very much accurate.
So I feel like this is definitely like my core value. I mean, I wouldn't say that like I would definitely say that like this is my core. Wouldn't say that's how I act in every situation. Like I definitely have like I said, I got number 2 next, which is my wing, which is the helper. So, I feel like it's pretty spot on. Like, even though just for people listening, it's the challenger. You guys can, you guys get what that means, but it says people of this personality type are essentially unwilling to be controlled either by others or their circumstances. They fully intend to be masters of their fate. 8s are strong-willed, decisive, practical, tough-minded, and energetic. They are also domineering. So yeah, I mean, I feel like that's pretty spot on.
Which is also interesting because that was my last score.
Yeah.
So it made me realize, I
saw that.
Yeah, and then I got the helper. But what's also interesting, which I didn't really understand, it said taking wings into account, you seem to be a 2.
Wing
it says
1.
you need 2 wing 3, or an 8 wing 7.
Okay, yeah. So just to clarify, the only wings you can have are the 2 numbers next to you. So if you are an 8, you have a 7 wing, or you have a 9 wing, right?
Okay.
So this is saying because those 2 types, the 8 and the 2, you scored so highly on, you could be a 2 wing 3, or you could be an 8 wing 7. So this is the part where you're going to kind of want to check in with like what's most important to you when it comes to how you approach life. So for example, the 2 is approaching life to help people, to be needed and to be accepted and to be loved, where the 8 is approaching life from a place of feeling like they need to protect themselves. They don't want to be, that's why they don't want to be controlled. And they need to control their own environment. And sometimes it bleeds into like needing to control people. And both of these types are, not to get too into it, but both these types, the 8 and the 2, are connected to each other. They integrate towards each other. in stress and also when like things are good. So for example, as an 8, Jess, when you are feeling like very safe and secure with someone, for example, with Olivia, you let your guard down. So you start to kind of reach and get a little bit more vulnerable and trusting. Whereas Olivia, if she is in fact a 2, she integrates to an 8 in a healthy way by becoming more assertive, saying no, establishing boundaries in order to protect herself.
Interesting. Is that because of like the diagram? Like, is that how you see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's where the kind of like the diagram comes into play. That's so interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I have these tabs open and I'm gonna read like all of it because it's just, bless you, it's just so interesting to understand. Oh, I'm so sorry.
When someone says bless you too soon and you can't speak.
Sorry, my bad. I just out of curiosity, when you meet people, do you automatically type them?
No, that's funny. I get that question all the time. I don't.
feel like it's almost a superpower. You're like type 3, type 5, type 7.
No, in fact, it's funny because like, one, I like to just meet people as humans, right?
Yeah,
like I
not as
don't
numbers.
that. But
Interesting.
also it's like highly discouraged, and I know why now, because especially if you once you start to like learn more about all the types, you might feel inclined to be like, oh, she's this or he's that or whatever. But you'll never know really, because you don't know what's motivating those characteristics. So someone can look like a 3, but they might actually be an 8, or something like that.
Really fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you never know like what's just going on in that person's life at that time.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that speaks volumes just about not judging a book by its cover, and like you don't know why people are the way they are, truly.
Yeah. I do, however, love to type like TV personalities or characters on TV. Like that's fun.
That's fun for sure. Oh, you know what? Didn't I see something? Was it The Office that you typed?
Oh, I did Friends. I typed everyone in Friends.
You did Friends.
Yeah. Oh my God, please do The Office.
Okay,
I love The Office so much.
Jess is obsessed. She's a super fan.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Cool.
But
this has been so
interesting.
Do you have any other topics you want to hit or questions you have, Jess?
No, I don't think right now. No. I'm sure I'll be hitting you up later and being like, oh my God, my man did this. I need to know.
Why am I the way I am?
Yeah.
I look forward to it.
Well, I encourage our listeners to, we will include the link the test that we took, and I encourage you guys to take it. It's really interesting, and it's something I'm definitely going to dive deeper into and force my fiance to take as well.
Nice.
Yeah, 100%. Sending this link to my man right now.
Yeah. So I think we're good to go into our deep dive.
Yay.
Deep dive. Splash. Okay, so this is a set of 3. Wait, before we do the deep dive, we have to do our pro tip, which we always forget. We always forget until the very end. So yeah, we ask every guest what their pro tip is. Could be small, could be big. What do you got for us?
Oh, a pro tip? Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I think in the context of how everyone might be a little bit stressed out right now, I would say that checking in with yourself is a good pro tip. It could be a simple question like, how do I want to honor myself right now? Or how can I honor myself right now? Just to better support ourselves.
Love that. That's a great journal prompt too.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, do you recommend that in like a journal format?
Yeah, it's something I ask myself every morning, like right as I'm waking up and I'm still kind of groggy. And then I also have an alarm set on my phone at about 5 o'clock that will also kind of remind me. Yeah.
Ooh, I like the alarm idea. That's a pro tip by itself too.
Yeah, I love that. Just out of curiosity, when you say, how do I want to honor myself? What does that look like for you? Because I feel like, for
Good
someone
question.
that's kind of new to that, like we can kind of it can kind of be like, I don't even know what that looks like to me.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think that you can maybe simplify it by just saying, or make it more concrete, I should say, and ask, what do I need right now? Because a lot of us, like you said, we don't know. We're on autopilot, especially when we're stressed, and we just don't know. So it could be something as simple as like, I'm just thirsty, or I'm hot right now. I need to maybe go lay down, go outside, take a few deep breaths. Or it could be something else kind of bigger, like there's a conversation I know I really need to have with this person, or, you know.
Yeah, and I love that you said that. Like, it could be something as simple as like, I just need a glass of water right now. Because I feel like when you start, like, that's a really good way to like ease into, the bigger things, and kind of what we talked about a few episodes ago is kind of listening to like your intuition and listening to yourself. It's like, it's a muscle. Once you start off with like those smaller things, it'll become much more natural for you to kind of know what you need at that time. So I love that.
And I think it's definitely easier when you have a question to prompt an answer. When you ask, what do I need right now? How can I honor myself right now? And even with me, I consider myself someone who's, self-aware and working on personal development. I journal, but that's a great question that I don't ask myself. It's always like, I always have the intention of being like productive or gaining insight or like being productive in some aspect, even in my personal growth. I'm like trying to chart, and just asking, how can I honor myself? Maybe just cut myself some slack, give myself a pat on the back, So I love that you made that point.
And not to divulge too much into this, but I feel like even when you do ask yourself that question, and maybe it is that you need some slack, I feel like you're able to take that slack without feeling guilty about it, Because I feel like when you're like just taking slack, because I know for me personally, like I place a lot of my like worth and value in productivity, and it's something that I'm trying to kind of rework, but I know that when I like kind of take a break, I feel kind of guilty because I'm like, oh my God, I have so many other things to do. But when you ask yourself what you need, and it is that break, you can kind of like allow yourself to take that guilt free. You're like, I need this, not like, not in like a burnt out type of feeling. So
good
just
point.
my 2 cents on that.
Good point.
No, I love that.
All right, well, let's get into our deep dive. Splash. Okay, so the first question, set of 3 questions we ask every guest. The first question is, what is your why?
What is my why? I think that
I know, another broad one. Sorry.
No, when you sent over the questions, I was thinking to myself, I don't want to think about these right now. I kind of want to answer them spontaneously.
Yeah.
And I think what kept coming up is that sometimes it's okay if your why changes, is the first thing that came up, because depending on the season of your life, it's going to look completely different than it did 10 years ago. So that's always a good sign that you're evolving as a human being. So I think right now, my why is primarily focused on my own inner work and healing that I've done in these past maybe 2-3 years, like a deep, deep dive. And being able to take those experiences and show women that, and men, but I feel like my branding calls women in, shows them that it's possible for them, and that it's coming from a compassionate place rather than like this is what you can manifest for yourself kind of place. Both are helpful, but I feel like making sure that women feel that it's attainable for them feels like a good why to me right now.
Love it.
I love that. And I love that you said that like your why can change. Like I feel so heard, because I feel like, I don't know, I'm the type of personality that like I don't really have like a super like overarching long-term why. Like I feel like I work a lot better when I have kind of like more short-term, attainable like whys that. And I feel like, the most important part is that you just have a why. When you don't, that's kind of when things get loosey-goosey. Yeah. But moving on to our next question, it is, what is your favorite quote and what does it mean to you?
Okay, I have, yeah, I mean, I have so many quotes. I think
We can hear a few of them because we love
we love
discussing.
quotes.
I think the one that most has been with me these last 2-3 years again has been by, gosh, I think it's Theodore Roosevelt. We can Google it if we need to, but it's do what you can with what you have where you are. And this was so important to me like 2-3 years ago when I was living in New York City, and I just like I knew what I wanted to do, but I felt like I couldn't do it because I didn't have this, or I needed to make sure that I was at this point in my life before I could actually, move forward with something. And instead, I got this quote on like a little cardstock because I was like, no, I can actually make a move right now. And I think that when we get into that mindset, it's just fear. It's like fear based. So just like that gentle reminder that I can do something right now. I don't have to wait.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Yeah, that's
it's
so
like
great.
it's kind of like that quote, why do something tomorrow what you could do today?
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
very, very along those lines, and I resonate with that a lot.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people procrastinate. They're, not to divulge too much, but they'll put things off and just say, "Well, I'm not ready for that now. I'm not ready for that now. I'll do that when when it feels right or when I feel ready." And sometimes that moment never really comes. You kind of just have to go for it before you're waiting around for this feeling,
Right. Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. Last but not least, this is a little bit of a doozy. What do you think separates successful, and whatever your definition of success is, what do you think separates successful people from those who give up, fail, or never get started on their dreams?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think when it comes to really going after our dreams or even just a small goal, some of us do have actual limitations, right? And I think that when it comes to the people who have, as you say, succeeded, we have to understand that those people failed multiple times. That if you are anywhere in the arena of like doing what you love or taking action on something, you're going to probably do it wrong over and over and over again. And getting comfortable with just developing a healthy relationship to that failure and like it allowing it to be a lesson learned, or okay, now that I know that that didn't work, I can go this route. But I think that the people who don't like try or get stuck with even just taking that first step is really based in a probably like deep self-limiting beliefs. Maybe they care too much what people think. Maybe they don't feel like they're worthy of it. A lot of people just don't feel like they deserve it. So if you're stuck there, it's really getting to understand yourself and like where you're, I don't want to say blocked, but like where you're feeling challenged the most and kind of diving there. Because I think we all have the potential, right? But we have to get over those roadblocks.
Love
Beautifully
that.
said.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Beautifully said. Something that we preach like almost every episode is no losses, just lessons.
Yeah.
So that's great. Any other points? You're good, Jess?
I'm good. I think this is great. I think this is a perfect note to end on.
Yes, thank you so, so much. If people want to hear more and know more about you and follow all of your amazing insight, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at ginagomez.co. It's GINAGOMEZ.co. And yeah,
Cool.
let me know that you came from here, from this podcast. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, definitely let her know. Thank you so much for this amazing conversation. We encourage you, take the test, find out more about your personality, why you are the way you are. I think it is really helpful and important in our everyday life and in our relationships that are closest to us. So I encourage everyone to take it.
And if you liked this episode, please screenshot this, share it on your stories, tag us, tag Gina, let her know that you loved the episode. We appreciate you guys always. And
yes,
have a great week, brothers.
Have a great week. Bye, guys.